I'm Rashad Miller, and this is my new segment called Into the Wild. This is when we look at a championship deck as it's thrown into the wild. And by wild, I mean Magic the Gathering Online. So in this episode, we're gonna look at Yuuya Watanabe's championship deck from the Players' Championship. And we all know he played Jund. So we're not gonna really go through his list because I'm sure you watched the coverage and you know what Jund does, and Yuuya's deck did it well. So we're gonna go and look at the first Magic Online Modern daily deck. So let's look at the next slide. And we have Tiki-Tan. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong. Obviously, internet names, how do you say them? So this is a 4-0 deck. This was back in September the 12th, and it kind of looks the same. And if we look at the side-by-side, the next slide, we'll see that the main decks are mostly identical, which you see a lot when a deck is new and you're not really familiar with. You don't want to go too far away from what was already working. And you see a couple of, I want to put my little swing on the deck. So you see this one Magma Jet down here that I highlighted. Probably not, maybe he only had Magma Jets and he didn't have another Terminate. And if we go to the next slide, we can see in the sideboards, there's one Sword of Light and Shadow. And I'm a fan of the swords. Swords are great. Not really breaking the format. It's not really saying, oh, this is a brand new deck, but just something that players want to try on Magic Online, get in the daily, just to see how that goes. So if we go to the next slide, we have Batutinya. Now this is a 3-1 deck back on the 1st of October. And obviously, if you just look at his deck, you see the basic Jund pieces here and there. Let's go to the side-by-side, next slide. And if you look, I didn't highlight anything because there aren't a lot of big differences between the main decks of these two decks. But if we go to the next side and look at the sideboards, big difference. You see this nice, concise sideboard for Batutinya as opposed to, the basic sideboard that was really originated by Yuuya Watanabe. And this is really what Magic Online does. This deck needed to survive in the Magic Online environment. As you can see, 4 Ancient Grudge and 3 Stone Rain, because there's a lot of robots, a lot of the Urzatron decks, and those are definitely the cards that are needed to defeat those strategies because they're all over the place. And we're playing on Magic Online now and not a 16-person tournament like Yuuya Watanabe did in the beginning. So if we go to the next slide, we will see the next deck by Cell Dweller, which, if any of you guys are watching any of the Magic Online streams, you know that's Cedric Phillips. He did all of his testing on Magic Online and did it publicly so everyone can see and help him. And there's some big changes here. Let's go to the next slide and we can see the side-by-side. And I have Giraffe Messenger and Kitchen Finks highlighted respectively on these two decks. This is a big change because this is the Jund decks becoming hyper aggressive. And Cell Dweller went over the top with both Giraffe's Messenger and Blightning, with Giraffe's Messenger basically being backwards Kitchen Finks, I guess. Instead of gaining a life, you lose a life, and the persist, it gets bigger instead of smaller. So Jund's starting to get a new face. It's starting to get aggressive. It's not caring what the other decks are doing. It's just trying to kill you as fast as possible. So let's go to the next slide. And we see Zwischenzug, not Zwischenzug, which I may have said in some other videos. We're not gonna go back and say that again. But as you can see, the Giraffe's Messenger, it's still there. So that change stuck. It's stuck. So let's go to the next slide so we can see the side-by-side with Cell Dweller. And the Blightnings that were in, a week ago, they came back out. Maybe it was too much, maybe it was too aggressive, but Jund Charm and Maelstrom Pulse came in just to give it some defensive options. You needed the versatility to be able to destroy, any permanent. And Jund Charm, there was a lot of weenie strategies that you really needed to be able to deal with. So if we go to the next slide, we will see, oh, look at that, the next deck from Pro Tour Return to Ravnica. That's today's date. We're not gonna say who it is, but you probably have a good idea of who might be playing this deck. Now this is another Jund deck. It's got a lot of the same cards, and if we look at the side-by-side, go to the next slide, you can see Giraffe Messenger still staying. And obviously, with the inclusion of Return to Ravnica cards, we have Abrupt Decay and Deathrite Shaman. Now, there's actually a pretty big gap between you know, the Pro Tour and Zvishen's deck, even though I'm pretty sure that there wasn't a lot of Magic Online testing going on then, but as you can see, Deathrite Shaman is making a big splash here. It's actually the best addition to this deck from Return to Ravnica that actually makes this deck even more aggressive. It pushes it over the top without playing cards like Blightning. It's aggressive and is interactive with a lot of the deck strategies. If we go to the next slide, this is basically then and now. If we look where we started with Yuuya Watanabe's deck and where we ended up with here at Pro Tour Return to Ravnica, big changes. No more Kitchen Finks. We're playing Abrupt Decay, we're playing Deathrite Shaman, and Jund this is a brand new Jund. This Jund, hyper aggressive, Yuuya's Jund, great for a 16-person tournament, but we're gonna see how well this Pro Tour Return to Ravnica deck fares up after the weekend's up. So that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching Into the Fire with me, Rashad Miller, actually Into the Wild. Into the Fire is a news segment. But I'm going to send it back to the news decks with Rich and BDM.